Hey BookTube! Welcome back to the History Shelf. I am your host, Peg. Thank you for joining me this evening, or afternoon or morning, wherever you are. I greet you. Today's video, we are talking about, I guess you can call it a book haul of sorts. Some used books that I have picked up along the way that I've been wanting to show you. Most of them are on a theme. I think you'll pick up on it. I won't tell you. Obviously, it's going to be very obvious. Sometimes, I've talked about this before on the channel that sometimes I go down little rabbit holes. I'm sure many of you do. You read one thing, and maybe a book is referred to, or a bibliography is just has a bunch of different titles on the same subject, and you just kind of just dive in, baby, and you just keep going. That's what happened to me with a lot of these. I also wanted to mention I have a bonus. I'm going to show you some recent history magazines I've gotten in the mail. I realize I don't show you enough of my magazines that I get. As you can see, maybe a little bit in the corner. I'm not going to show you these. These are more of we got First Things, New Criterion. Oh, I do have the New Yorker. I've got the latest issue of the New Yorker. Commentary magazine, so kind of like politics, current events, culture, writings. I'm having to not, a couple of them I'm not renewing my subscription just because I do have a backlog I need to catch up on, plus times are tough and I'm having to really cut down on expenses. So, I'm just going to have to let some of these subscriptions go, and maybe later on down the road I can resubscribe. But I was going to show you some of my history magazines as well. But yeah, this is a used book haul with an emphasis on the history, obviously, because this is the History Shelf. You see how that works. Shout out to I wanted to. You know what? No, we'll keep going because I don't think they'll be watching this video. I might do a family shout out and another one where. A lot of the things I read, I have family who like to watch my channel, but not because of, they're interested in what I'm reading. They're not, but, they just want to support me. Maybe I'll save that for a fiction video. Anyway, most of these books, except for one, are on the theme of, one would be like Holocaust. One would be anti-Semitism in World War II and in different places. And what kicked that off for me was this amazing book, which I have a review coming out pretty soon on shelf awareness. This book, I've shown it to you before on this channel, but I wanted to let you know that it is coming. My review is coming. This is The Elimination by Rithi Pan. It's a survivor of the Khmer Rouge confronts his past and the commandant of the killing fields. This book rocked my world, but in a very, just like, wow. And he references so many other works on different Holocausts or genocides that he would, he read during his life after he survived this. To try to help him come to terms with what he lived through and what his people lived through. And yeah, the bibliography in the back of this turned me on to some of these other books that you're going to be seeing. Not all of them, but it was this book and another one that really just kind of set me off. But now, just so you know, and many of you who may have read this book before, because this is a new edition with a new introduction, foreword by Rithi Pan. This came out many years ago. Let me see here. I don't know how far back. Let's take a look. See. It came out. I think in French in 2012. Okay, but Other Press is re-releasing it with this new foreword by the author, and I can't recommend it enough. Just know that it's bleak, it's grim. Just remind you of, that man's inhumanity to man knows no bounds. There's no limits, unfortunately. And anyway, so I'll be having a review of this is coming out soon on Shelf Awareness, and I will be I'll be posting that on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. So you can find out and head over to Shelf Awareness and read it. Let me just tell you, I'm going to be writing a review of this book. I just finished it last night. I stayed up late to finish it. It was such a page turner. It was such a fun read. This book is coming out in May from St. Martin's Press, and it's Whack Job, A History of Axe Murder by Rachel McCarthy James. This was so much fun to read. I don't mean to laugh. But she takes an assortment of case studies from the past, and she goes way back to back to ancient China, Egypt, the battle axe, and talks about a certain case. But then you get into more well-known stuff, like obviously Lizzie Borden. But then she went into some other things too, like Freydis, the Viking, the daughter of Eric the Red, and the stories in the saga of the Greenlanders, I think. How she was known to have killed 5 women with an axe. And then we go into what was the other one? Executioner's axe for the Tudor era. And she just weaves together these little snippets so well. And it just makes you, and she just takes you off of this wide range of time. And it's very witty. Anyway, I don't want to give away too much because I'm going to be writing a review of this. So this will also be in Shelf Awareness, my review, but I really highly recommend Whack Job. This comes out May 13th. Thought I'd mention that. Before I get into the books, do you want to see my magazines? Yeah, I thought. Let's go. What do we got here? I just kind of picked up a handful. This is not the extent of my history magazines by any stretch of the imagination. We've got the spring 2025 issue of Military Heritage, and I love when they have a Civil War cover. And it's feature stories on Pickett's Charge, so you can't go wrong with that. Got some great World War I article on Ypres. I just love these magazines. Look how just this widespread here. They increased their size, the format of the magazine. Military Heritage has gotten a little wider, but I've always loved history magazines ever since I was a teenager. I just ate them up. I was a big True West fan. Remember those old paper magazines? Not this glossy type, but just paper, like pulp paper. Old West and True West were 2 separate magazines I subscribed to. And I think I had a letter to the editor published in one of them, and I was so tickled by that. Because I had written it when I was 14 or 15. But yeah, I love that. Military Heritage is a great magazine. This comes out quarterly. I'm not canceling my subscription to this one. Let's see. Now this one, I did cancel my subscription, I thought, but they keep sending me issues. I need to double check to make sure because I am trying to cut down on my subscriptions. But I got another issue of Ancient Egypt, Magic and Power, the Symbolism of Hair in Ancient Egypt. So this is exactly what it says it is. This is a UK magazine, but kind of light on the text, but heavy on the photos and stuff like that. But these are nice too, though. I do love me some ancient Egyptian history. So that's another one. We're gonna go, and then straight up ancient history is Ancient History, and this is a Netherlands publication. This one's latest issue, number 53. It's about the Phoenicians, travels with the Phoenicians, makers of the Mediterranean. I subscribe to all 3 of this publisher's magazines. We've got Ancient History, which is one of their newest publications. I've shown it to you before on this channel. They're great. I love them. Then you have Ancient Warfare, because I love ancient history, especially warfare, Spartans, Athens, the Peloponnesian War. I love all that stuff. This is the most recent one, City-States in an Arms Race, Greek Innovation in the 4th Century BC. And of course, I've told you I love, the centerfold is always this massive piece of like unique, original, commissioned artwork. Love it. And let's see here. So they have similar layouts, as you can see. They recently, Ancient Warfare, this is the one before it, just came out with their 100th issue. And I love this one. Look at this guy. Ah! Duels to the Death, Single Combat in Antiquity. I can't wait to see what the centerfold is on this one. Ooh. I don't know what it is. I just love these. Well, there's some great artwork right there, too. Provocat per interpretum, Belarius the Gaul and the Interpreter. Oh, this is good stuff. So, yeah, they just had their 100th issue. Isn't it fantastic? So much color, so many visuals, so many graphics, and the articles are well written and well researched. Oh, here we go. Single combat with consequences. Yes. Love it. So that was the 100th issue that came out. The other magazine that this publisher, Caravanserai Publishers. I can never pronounce it correctly, and then they have Medieval World Culture and Conflict. As you can see, they've only had 16 issues, but here's why. This used to be the medieval warfare. So you had Ancient Warfare and then MW, Medieval Warfare. So I have an archive of medieval warfare issues, but I guess they wanted to kind of involve more, obviously, culture and not have it just focus on warfare, which is interesting. I like this layout too. I really like the font and the new design. And this is the most recent issue that I got a few days ago. It's a complete education, study, and learning in the medieval world. Oh, look at this. Look at these pantaloons. Yeah. I'll try to give you a little flavor. Again, you can see it's very similar in look and feel. Okay, but it's not based all on warfare and tactics and weaponry and all that kind of stuff. So these are some of my recent arrivals. Oh, I got one more to show you real quick. This is another magazine I enjoy, and as you can tell, military history is a big theme of mine. Strategy and Tactics. I have a subscription to them. Just because it's hard to find these on newsstands. I mean, they do sell these at Barnes & Noble. Strategy and Tactics. I do believe they also sell Ancient Warfare. If you just want to try out a single issue, if you don't really want to subscribe, but most recent issue, May, June, French and Indian War, Conquest of a Continent. Got a nice article here on Artemisia. Let's see, 4 battles for Rzhev. And so this is a different publisher altogether, as you can see. I also subscribe to World at War, which you just saw me flip past. Great battle maps, as you can see, very detailed. Now, I know with this magazine, there is a, I don't take part in it, but I think they have like war games, or I don't know, they're like strategy games and people really get into it. I don't know how it works, but they use this magazine as a guide, and people will play these war games with these issues and the major battle. Oh, look at that! Look at that trireme. Trireme Tactics of the Greek-Persian War. I love seeing this stuff. Oh yeah, Salamis. Yeah, Battle of Salamis. Fantastic. So yeah, strategy and tactics. It's another one I really heartily enjoy. All right, so those are some magazines. I just said, you know what? I haven't done that in a while. Let me just throw a few in here before I head into the used books. Let's see. let's start with this one. This one is, when did this come out? This is a big, beefy book, but I ordered it used. Came out in 2006. This is called Bad Faith, A Forgotten History of Family, Fatherland, and Vichy France by Carmen Khalil. I think I bought it third party, used, maybe off of Amazon. It's not Thrift Books, or maybe it was, and I took the sticker off. Yeah, I think it was Thrift Books. Look at this. Look how big it is. So let me tell you what this one's about. Bad Faith tells the story of one of history's most despicable villains and con men. Louis Darquer, you know me and the French names, in the French language, and the French words, I don't pronounce them well. Louis Darquer, I can't do this. Louis Darquer de Pellepoix, Nazi collaborator and commissioner for Jewish affairs who managed the Vichy government's dirty work, controlling its Jewish population. Though he is one of the less remembered figures of the Vichy government, I've always been interested in Vichy and how that came about, and then how people resisted it. Okay, one of the less remembered figures of the Vichy government, Darquer, the aristocratic de Pellepoix, was appropriated. He appropriated the appellation at the end, de Pellepoix. Was one of its most hideously effective officials. Already a notorious Nazi-supported rabble-rouser, when he was appointed commissioner, he set about to eliminate the Jews with particularly brutal efficiency. Darquer was in charge of the Val de Hiv roundup in Paris, in which nearly 13,000 Jews were dispatched to death camps. Most of the French who died in Auschwitz were sent there during his tenure. Almost all of the 11,400 French children, God bless, sent to Auschwitz, the majority of whom did not survive, were deported in his time. My Lord. Hell is full, folks. Let me just tell you, it is full. In all, he delivered, with people like this guy is what I'm saying. In all, he delivered 75,000 French to the Nazis and at the same time accelerated the confiscation of Jewish property, which he then used for his own financial gain. Never brought to justice, he lived out his life comfortably in Spain, denying his involvement in the Holocaust until his last days. Where did Louis Darquer come from? How did this man, a chronic fantasist and hypocrite, gambler and cheat, come to control the fates of thousands? What made him what he was? These are the questions at the center of this extraordinary book. All right. Yes, and I picked this book up because it was in a bibliography of another book I finished recently. Was it? No, it wasn't No Road Leading Back. It wasn't that one. Ooh, I have to go look at my Goodreads log to see, but it was something I finished reading and I reviewed, and they referenced this book in the bibliography. So I was interested in the piece of data that the author had used and cited in the bibliography, and I was like, let me check out Bad Faith because I want to know just a little bit more about this. So I picked this up, and that is why. So there you have that. Same with these two books by the same author. Who is Susan Zuccotti. Let's start with this one. The Holocaust, the French, and the Jews. Again, I just picked this up on Thrift Books. All right. Let's see. Many recent books have documented the collaboration of the French authorities with the anti-Jewish German policies of World War II. Yet about 76% of France's Jews survived, more than in almost any other country in Western Europe. How do we explain this phenomenon? Certainly not by looking at official French policy, for the Vichy government began preparing racial laws even before the German occupiers had decreed such laws. To provide a full answer to the question of how so many French Jews survive, Susan Zuccotti examines the response of the French people to the Holocaust. Drawing on memoirs, government documents, and personal interviews with survivors, she tells the stories of ordinary and extraordinary French men and women. Zuccotti argues that the French reaction to the Holocaust was not as reprehensible as it has been portrayed. Okay. And now, I picked up the second book, and I can't get the stickers off just yet, but let me show you. So this one, is still in France, tackling that. And this is a University of Nebraska Press title, I should say. Well, she wrote a second book, and this one focuses on the Italians and the Holocaust, persecution, rescue, and survival. Can't get these stickers just off. I'm going to work on it, though. This is also from Bison Books. Yeah, it's the University of Nebraska Press imprint. So the Italians in the Holocaust. And this one won the National Book Award for Holocaust Studies. 85% of Italy's Jews survived World War II. Nevertheless, more than 6,000 Italian Jews were destroyed in the Holocaust, and the lives of countless others were marked by terror. Susan Zuccotti relates hundreds of stories showing the resourcefulness of the Jews, the bravery of those who helped them, and the inhumanity and indifference of others. For Zuccotti, the Holocaust in Italy began when the first black-shirted thug poured a bottle of castor oil down the throat of his victim, or when the dignity of a single human being was violated. She writes, "We might examine again how most Italians behaved from the onset of fascism. Did they do as much as they could? Or should they, and the Jews as well, have recognized the danger sooner, with the first denial of liberty and free speech? We might also ask ourselves whether we, as creatures without prejudice, would act as well as most Italians did under similar pressures. Would we risk our lives for persecuted minorities? Would we be more sensitive to the first assaults upon our liberties?" Let me read that again. Would we be more sensitive to the first assaults upon our liberties? Okay, when the only ones really hurt in the beginning are communists, socialists, democratic, anti-fascists, and trade unionists. And finally, we might be more aware than we are of the horrors that a racist lunatic fringe can commit, even in the best of societies. A racist lunatic fringe. I'm telling you, doesn't history always just speak at all times? It speaks to the present, it speaks to the past, it speaks to the future. I mean, history is the greatest teacher. It just is. You can't really be living in the now and have your memory limited to the 24-hour news cycle or as far back as only like a week. You've got to go back. You've got to go back. You've got to study history because these patterns are there. Then they repeat. They might look a little different in their superficial, verities, but it's still a pattern. And it all comes back to the fact that human beings, and I've always said this on this channel at different times, but human nature, it's something that it doesn't change. You can't rub it out. You'd think that people would learn, and, but you had, people writing books on utopia, Thomas More, you got all these folks. Utopia, obviously, is never reachable in a fallen world. Then, of course, that's where my faith comes in, but it's just, you're not going to reach it because human beings are innately fallible and flawed. Now, there's a lot of good. But we are flawed individuals and flawed as a species. So that's my take on it. The Italians in the Holocaust by Susan Zuccotti. So I've got those two volumes that she wrote, and I'm eager to, gently tiptoe through them. Personal note, I've just been kind of wrapped up when I'm working, I listen to podcasts and stuff, and I probably just went down a rabbit hole on a certain true crime case that It has haunted me for years, and I don't know if you guys know about it. I'm sure you do, but ever since I listened to this podcast, Down the Hill, it's haunted me. And they've got two new, well, I'm getting a used book that came out, not used, I'm sorry, it's been out, and I'm going to buy a bargain book of it, that came out a couple of years ago on the Delphi, Indiana murder case. But there's a brand new one coming out in August, and the publisher is putting my name on the list for a finished copy. I will not get an advanced review copy because it has been embargoed until August. But, you know, I'll get into it. I plan on doing a video or two on it. I'm not a true crime podcaster or channel at all. It's just something that has really haunted me, and I feel so deeply about it. You know, I don't want to flag anything for YouTube by saying what it is, but if you just look it up, you know, Delphi, you know, bridge guy, you'll know about it. The podcast Down the Hill, I cannot recommend it enough. The audio one is the best because it gives you the more in-depth interviews with everyone involved. But it really, it's kind of taking me, I'm like, I need to take a break from that because it's dark and it is not, I just want to make sure that they got the, you know, they got the right person, you know, because those girls deserve justice. Anyway, so I'm going to tiptoe through these, you know, because it's just heavy stuff, and I get it, guys. I know it. I'm showing you a lot of books that are dark, and, you know, history's crimes and history's, you know, bloodbaths, and I apologize for that. It's just, there's a lot of it in history. What can I say? I don't know why I'm interested in it. I guess it's just, again, it comes back to me just being interested in this tug of war, this cosmic battle of good and evil, and this battle for the hearts and souls of human beings. You know what I mean? Will the good win out? Will the bad? I'm just fascinated by it because I think in the end it's really what things come down to. It's what side you choose to be on. You know, are you siding with the Prince of the Air? You know, or the good and the, you know, Jesus Christ is basically what I'm saying. And I proclaim that, and I just, sometimes you just have to stare evil in the face to really reckon with it and to hate it. The Bible does call us to hate evil. And so I do. I do. And what happened in Delphi, Indiana back in 2017, if that doesn't make you want to hate evil, I don't know what will. All right, moving back on. We're going to go back to Vichy for a second. I've got another used book I picked up. I think I'm remembering now where I started getting really interested in how Jews were treated in Italy and France. And it was actually a novel. And I posted a review on my social media. The novel, it came out in Forward. And this is another magazine that I book review for. This is Forward. Reviews of indie books since 1998. But it's not just indie books. Oh, is it in here? Maybe I can show you. It is called Charlotte Salomon Paints Her Life. Here's my review. This is it right here. I did not know about Charlotte Salomon. She was a painter. She was a German Jewish artist, and she was in Berlin. But then she kind of escaped off to France for a while. But she really loved. She wanted to come back to Germany, but then it kind of talked about different, different things that she ran into. And this is the most recent issue, March, April 2025. I had never heard of Charlotte Salomon and her technique, her art technique, which was fascinating. I do recommend the novel. I think it will make you very interested in how German Jews and artists and others would, escape or try to live in Germany under the Third Reich and try to live under the radar, but it was almost impossible. I mean, it's harrowing stuff. But what an inspiration. I'm not going to give away too much about what happens to her if you want to read the novel. But it turned me on to wanting to study the Jewish experience in World War II in these various countries, Germany, France, Italy. So it took me to this. Verdict on Vichy, Power and Prejudice in the Vichy France Regime by Michael Curtis. Now this book came out 2002. All right. This was published by Arcade. Came out in the UK first. Let me read this to you. On May 10th, 1940, Hitler's panzer divisions launched an offensive on their neighbors to the west, sweeping through the Low Countries and the Ardennes. Despite France's impressive army and parity and weaponry, by mid-June the Germans had occupied Paris. Days later, a new French government under Marshal Philippe Pétain, that guy, was formed. Sorry, just have a visceral reaction. With its capital in Vichy, for the next 4 years, France was first partially and then fully occupied by the Nazis. During that time, French officials and police cooperated with the policies of Nazi Germany, particularly in their treatment of France's 330,000 Jews, about a quarter of whom perished in Nazi death camps. For decades, the official French line, by de Gaulle and others, held that Vichy France represented a small group of collaborators, not French society as a whole. What actually did happen during that fateful period, however, has been hard to assess. For many who collaborated later surfaced as prominent post-war figures in politics, business, and finance. The complex truth is now emerging as the French government has finally accepted France's responsibility for the actions of the Vichy government, and long-suppressed files are being made public. In this book, Michael Curtis sets out to explore why and how people, groups, and institutions in France not only carried out the wishes and demands of the German occupiers, but often, especially on the Jewish question, exceeded them with a zeal that is shocking. Let's see. Now, this book is dated 2002. It says here, Curtis, a political scientist, uses up-to-date information and research to examine the degree to which ministers and officials of the Vichy regime, the legal and administrative system, the church, and individuals in different walks of life participated in discrimination against and persecution of Jews. He also assesses the extent of collaboration and accommodation with Nazi Germany and the nature of the Vichy regime itself. Curtis draws upon the recent French government-sponsored reports of the complex Aryanization process and the requisitioning of Jewish goods and property. His analysis, using this new information, addresses a number of subjects: the careers, indictments, and trials of some individuals for crimes against humanity committed during the war, the difficulties of the judicial system in reaching clear, unambiguous decisions on those indictments, and the ambivalent role of Vichy officials, including François Mitterrand, who belatedly forged links with or joined the resistance. This informative and reflective book explains why the divisions and repercussions of the Vichy years still resonate in France today. Despite all we have learned about the crimes against humanity committed during World War II, says this book will shock and anger. Now, if you remember, I just read this description of the Holocaust, the French and the Jews by Zuccotti. Now, she's saying it wasn't that bad. So these two books read in parallel, okay? I want to kind of read them together because it seems like he's making the case like this will shock and anger you how bad it was. And she's saying, no, the French didn't do that. What is she saying here? The French reaction to the Holocaust was not as reprehensible as it has been portrayed. Now, she wrote this in, 1993. So 1993-ish. So obviously this one preceded this book on Vichy. And this is 2002. So kind of reading these in, combined together, we're going to have a two sides of an argument. So that could be really good. Anyway, pick that up used as well. So also on that theme, This is a little book I just decided to pick up. As you can see, it's got thrift book sticker on it still. I listen to a lot of different podcasts and watch different things on YouTube. There's a new, I don't know what you'd call it, online newspaper, journal, whatever it's called. It's called The Free Press. And Barry Weiss, she used to write for the New York Times. Oh, this one is highly highlighted. Yep. She used to write for the New York Times, but her treatment there was kind of not good. So she left, and she stood up her own new organization called the Free Press. The Free Press. I didn't know that she had written a little book, How to Fight Anti-Semitism, by Barry Weiss. It's, like you said, a little tiny thing. It was put out by Crown, and she wrote this in 2019. I'm just curious about it. Let's see here. I think she kind of wrote it in after the Tree of Life, that synagogue shooting in 2018. Yeah, it says here on October 27th, 2018, 11 Jews were gunned down as they prayed at their synagogue in Pittsburgh. It was the deadliest attack on Jews in American history. For most Americans, the massacre at Tree of Life, the synagogue where Barry Weiss became a bar mitzvah, came as a shock. Yet anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred, commonplace across the Middle East and on the rise for years in Europe. So that terrible morning in Pittsburgh raised a question Americans can no longer avoid. Could it happen here? This book is Weiss's answer. Like many, Weiss long believed this country could escape the rising tide of anti-Semitism with its promise of free speech and religion, its insistence that all people are created equal, its tolerance for difference, and its emphasis on shared ideals rather than bloodlines. America has been, even with all its flaws, a new Jerusalem for the Jewish people. But now the luckiest Jews in history are beginning to face a three-headed dragon known all too well to Jews of other times and places. The physical fear of violent assault, the moral fear of ideological vilification, and the political fear of resurgent fascism and populism. No longer the exclusive province of the far right, the far left, and assorted religious bigots, anti-Semitism now finds a home in identity politics, as well as the reaction against identity politics in the renewal of America First isolationism and the rise of one world socialism, and in the spread of Islamist ideas into unlikely places. A hatred that was, until recently, reliably taboo is migrating toward the mainstream, amplified by social media and a culture of conspiracy that threatens us all. Weiss is one of our most provocative writers, and her cri de coeur makes a powerful case for renewing Jewish and American values in this uncertain moment, not just for the sake of America's Jews, but for the sake of America. And here's our writer, Barry Weiss. So I wanted to read this little treatise here and see what that's about. I think she's a well-spoken, intelligent. I love her presence. I've watched interviews with her on YouTube, and I've really enjoyed her take on things. Okay, so this book was recommended through, what did I do with it? Through the elimination. So in this book, Rithi Pan talks about this book a lot and how it helped him to read about a Holocaust survivor, a genocide survivor, and he would go back to this book over and over. And so I was intrigued, and I said, I am going to get this. So I found a used copy. It wasn't easy to find this copy. Let me just tell you that much, without being really, really expensive. But this is Auschwitz and After. This is the second edition by Charlotte Delbo, translated by Rosette C. Lamont. It's got a new introduction. This version came out Auschwitz and After, 1995. This was Yale University Press, and this is Charlotte Delbo right here. All right. Charlotte Delbo was a French writer sent to Auschwitz for her resistance activities against the Nazi German occupation of France. You see how this is all tied in? Of France in collaborationist Vichy and the collaborationist Vichy regime. Delbo's moving memoir of life and death in Auschwitz and the post-war trauma of survivors, Auschwitz and After, is now a classic of Holocaust literature. offering the rare perspective of a non-Jew. Delbo records moments of horror and of desperate efforts at mutual support, of the everyday deprivation and abuse experienced by everyone in the camps, especially by children. Suffer the little children. This is just, Pat Benatar. Hey, shout out, Pat Benatar. Boy, her song, Hell is for Children, it's sadly so true. This world is so cruel to children. And that circles back to that down the hill thing I was talking about. If your kids get through childhood all right, then it's a good thing, because there's just so many monsters out there. Anyway, Auschwitz and After conveys how a survivor must carry the word and continue to live after surviving one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century. This second edition includes an updated and expanded introduction by Holocaust scholar Lawrence Langer. Let me see if I can... I want to read it. There's some poetry in here, too. I could see that there's some, the type is very small. But I've got glasses. There's some poetry in here as well. This is going to be powerful reading. I'm also going to have to choose the right time to dip into that. But Ruthie Pan here. I'm also going to... he's also inspired me to look at his documentaries. Ruthie Pan is a documentary maker. Two of his documentaries where he actually interviews the commandant of the killing fields is called... let's see here. Well, the first one he did, or was this the second one? The first one he did was on this commandant. The follow-up was S-21, the Khmer Rouge killing machine. I found used copies, like new, on eBay, and I'm going to be watching them. And not right now, because I don't know. At some point I want to, but this is how I go down rabbit holes, guys. I read a book, it moves me, I'm intrigued, I want to know more. I don't know. So I'll talk to you in another video about those DVDs, and I'll show them on the channel just so you're aware of them, and if you're able to find them or whatever, if you're interested in it. But this book was just packed with so many book and video recommendations. How he wrote about Charlotte Delbo's book. Let's see here. If you will indulge me, I'm going to read just a little small snippet from The Elimination. I think it's okay to do that because it's not, I'm reading from the book and it's not part of my commissioned review that will be coming out shortly. But he talks about some of the books that he has read to try to cope with what has happened to him. And I'm sorry, I'm at 43 minutes already. Another long video here on the History Shelf. So he kind of writes, he flashes back and forth a lot in time. But this is what he says at this point here, halfway through. I'd like not to know anything anymore. Yank myself out of that period. Take gentle leave of my childhood. I'd like never to hear Dutch's laugh again. Dutch is the name of the nickname of the commandant of the S-21 security prison where everyone was tortured and executed. Nonetheless, I listen to him. I observe him. I approach him. I read a great deal. Gita Sereni's Into That Darkness, about Franz Stangl, the commandant of the Treblinka extermination camp. Life Laid Bare and Machete Season. 2 books about Rwanda by Jean Hatzfeld. I have those 2 books. I study Louis Althusser's Four Marx, and Marx, M-A-R-X, so the socialist, what do you call it? What do you call him? Was he a philosopher? He's a political scientist or whatever he was. He was the devil. Just kind of kidding. I study Louis Althusser's Four Marx and some of Etienne Balibar's texts on Marx and historical materialism, The Origins of Totalitarianism and Eichmann in Jerusalem by Hannah Arendt, Adorno's The Authoritarian Personality, Robert Antelm's The Human Race, Charlotte Delbo's, now he says here it was a trilogy. I could not find trilogy. I just found 1 volume. So I'm guessing they combined all 3. But he says Charlotte Delbo's trilogy, Auschwitz and After. So, he's referring to all these different books that he has turned to for answers, I guess for answers, or for some type of why? Why? And that's a question you will ask when you read something like this and something like this. But anyway, it's a beautifully written book. It's haunting. It's at times the writing is just so, it's staccato sentences, very brief, but they pack a punch, baby. I'm not kidding you. So I actually I'm going to make sure I get a finished copy of this so I can easily reference, get some page numbers on some of these items that I want to keep referring to. But this is a keeper, and I definitely want to get a finished copy of that. So anyway, thanks for indulging me on that. Let's see. I'll save that one book that does not fit. I'm not even going to include it. It does not fit with this theme. Here's one more, though, I want to show you. This is my most recent pickup. I got it about a week ago through Thrift Books, I believe. And this is Humanity, A Moral History of the 20th Century by Jonathan Glover. Where did I think it might also have been that book I finished reading. Guys, I'm reading so much, it's hard for me to remember where I got the little, bibliographic note to turn me on to wanting to read this. The 20th century was the most brutal in human history, featuring a litany of shameful events that includes the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the Stalinist era, Cambodia, Yugoslavia, and Rwanda. This important book looks at the politics of our times and the roots of human nature to discover why so many atrocities were perpetuated and how we can create a social environment to prevent their recurrence. Jonathan Glover finds similarities in the psychology of those who perpetuate, collaborate in, and are complicit with atrocities, uncovering some disturbing common elements: tribal hatred, blind adherence to ideology, diminished personal responsibility, as well as characteristics unique to each situation. Acknowledging that human nature has a dark and destructive side, he proposes that we encourage the development of a political and personal moral imagination that will compel us to refrain from and protest all acts of cruelty. This book came out in... this came out from Yale University Press as well, I should say. This book came out in 1999. So I had never heard of it, but as soon as I did, I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. Again, the psychology of this stuff is what really, I think, is the driving force of my interest. But yeah, so there's your deep, dark used history book haul, guys. I don't know what we're going to do. Whoa! Why am I laughing? Because it's either that or I just, just sob and wail on this channel. But anyway, no, I'm just saying all of history is interesting to me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This happened to be kind of the bad and the ugly side, but I promise you I'll bring you a really good one soon. Maybe with this one, which I wasn't going to show you. The Nightingales. The Extraordinary Upbringing and Curious Life of Miss Florence Nightingale by Gillian Gill. I bought that a while ago because I had read Flight of the Wild Swan, a fantastic novel. Kind of, the novelist puts herself in the shoes of Florence Nightingale, and it's atmospheric. It's very literary, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, I want to know more about Nightingale's experiences. Gosh, her family life was interesting, and her sister's name was so interesting. Her sister's name was Parthenope. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. But anyway, guys, so there's a used history book haul for you with a little bonus of magazines. What? 50-minute video. My goodness. I've got to really start breaking these up. Anyway, guys, I hope you're having a good one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any thoughts on these books, if you've read any of them. And the magazines too, you know. But anyway, I will be back soon. Got more stuff to show you. Got a couple of book hauls. I've got a few book hauls actually, and then that's it. That's it. I am on a budgetary freeze. Right, I am. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me here on the History Shelf. I'll be back soon. Stay well out there. Be kind. And yeah, see you soon. Bye-bye.